ding a ding 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 ding. Stevenson, Washington. Here we go. On Highway 14. This thing's working. My ears are ringing a little bit. Not terrible bad compared to most times I go through Stevenson. Maybe it's just because I'm feeling better today. I don't know. I just went up to my grandpa's house. Saw a couple of my aunts and uncles, a cousin, grandpa, and my dad. Had some dinner. On my way back now. Wow. That looks cool. That big mountain to the left. Let's see, it would be that one. My dad was telling me a story about when grandma was pregnant with him. She was in Stevenson, and he was just standing in town, standing there and looking off this direction, and there was an earthquake or something, and the whole face of that great big mountain just fell off of there while she was watching. And there was a big landslide here up in the mountains there, buried a few people in their homes. Crazy. I also heard about grandma she said, unless I'm remembering it wrong, there was a time when the Columbia River would freeze over near Bridge of the Gods up here, and supposedly somebody drove a Volkswagen Bug across there, or a little Volkswagen at some point, across the ice and made it. I've never seen the Columbia freeze over, but apparently it used to freeze over. Maybe that was before Bonneville Dam was put in, and the water was lower and wider, maybe, I don't know, or just much lower, so it would freeze more easily. This little lake here, said to be extremely deep, like a volcanic hole or something. So it's I heard that they never found the bottom, but I can't imagine that's still the case. They couldn't find the bottom of it. It's got to be somewhere. Yeah. Anyway, I want to go up to the mountains up here, off to the right. This road up here, it leads up to these logging roads that I've been up there once when I was a kid, and there's this high mountain lake, kind of like a pond in a way, because it's not very deep. It's got lily pads all over it, and lots of frogs up there. And there was a raft that somebody made and just leaves up there. You can raft around on the lake. I just want to check out some of the rock formations too, because there's rock formations that look suspiciously like they were made, the shapes aren't quite natural, but they look, you can say they're natural, but because there's nothing stands out that looks like, oh, somebody built this, but they're questionable. They got the shape of buildings in places, they just don't have the openings. You can tell that there's a rock quarry up there in one of them. It's the road goes around, there's obvious excavation from rocks being removed from that area at some point in time, but not any time recently or in recent times. You can tell it's just there's nothing up there to do it with. They don't harvest the rocks out of there anymore, but you can tell they did at one point. I wonder if there's a castle up there and they just I'm starting to think that wherever, because there's a rock quarry, a sand and gravel company, and such. They're all over the place, and they always seem to be in kind of an odd place sometimes. Like, why would there be a whole bunch of rocks right here in this place in town that's not really near a mountain with an outcropping of that type of rock? I don't know. Like Swan Island in Portland. Swan Island Sand and Gravel's been there a long time, and Swan Island is right there on the Multnomah, or the Willamette, excuse me, in Multnomah County, on the Willamette River. And it's right in an area where, close enough to downtown Portland, where the big cast iron fronted and stone and masonry buildings were before they tore most of them down. And so the way the old world was set up, there was those prominent points on islands near the cities, or points like San Pablo Point, down there near San Francisco. There's all kinds of land features where they would have, some of their Tartarian buildings with their, their domes and spires and obelisks and antiquitech all over it. That mountain there's got a little bit of a shape to it. Not quite like Tum Tum Hill near Mount St. Helens. I made that video, made a couple of videos in that, and I think when I get the chance, I'm gonna have to go up there and hike up that mountain just to see what it's like. It's so steep though; it's gonna be quite the hike. I know that. There's the old Bonneville Dam. I remember when they built that. My mom's husband, well, they didn't get married, but her old man worked there, building on it, doing for the Teamsters Union. And up here is where they destroyed the entire town of Bonneville to put that in. The town of Bonneville used to be right here, and it's gone. There's nothing left. The ground's not even at the same level there. Up here to the right, there's on the other side of those train tracks, there's a hot springs. The water rights say that, it's public use. Hot springs is supposed to be a public water source, but it's not. The Hoffman Corporation has a little headquarters area set up there, and a guy that lives in an RV on site. And where the hot springs is at, there's a hotel that got built in maybe the 70s or the 80s when it was still open, apparently. Probably the 70s. And it's been closed for a while, but the building is still there. It looks actually like it's been upkept and it's viable, but it's not open to the public in any way. It'd be nice to be able to just go to that hot spring sometime, but it's off limits. There's Beacon Rock in the distance to the left, where my best friends, one of my best friends' ashes is spread up there. He died back in 2002, I think, maybe around then. Rest in peace, Kelsey Lurkey. Yeah. Life is short. Seems long when you're bored. It's just like a dream in the way, when you go to sleep at night, whether you have a dream or not, as soon as you're asleep, it seems like no time at all. You're waking up. Like, what happened to that 8 hours? I wanted to rest for 8 hours and relax, and I don't even remember it now. I don't feel like I rested and relaxed, sometimes. So it flies right by. I've been looking into a lot of these consciousness, type things lately. Just because, introverts like me, we got a rich inner world and we spend way too much time lost in our own heads. But, where else am I gonna go? I don't know. Yeah. So I've been listening to Ram Dass most recently. Ram Dass is a funny guy. He's like a guru, philosopher kind of guy, but he's also a comedian. I swear, he'll be serious, and he's talking about serious, subject matter that should be taken seriously, but not overly seriously. Just in practical ways about, life and death and consciousness and just philosophy things of life. And he's funny though, he's always got some story from his 60s or something that he can tie in, and he's just a funny guy. He keeps his talks interesting. You don't have to wait too long for the comedic break. He'll weave it in there every so often when it needs to be. He's a very astute speaker. See, before Ram Dass, most recently, I think it was Sadhguru. The Sadhguru for about a year, until he started promoting the globe, like at every large opportunity. And Sadhguru's got followers. Oh my goodness. I mean, I was tripping when I first came across his stuff. I'm like, who's this guy? He looks like Santa Claus, Sadhguru. And I look at his YouTube channel, and he's got like 13 million subscribers or something. 13 million? I'm like, whoa. This guy's got an entire nation's worth of people as followers on YouTube. That's crazy. But he's pretty high profile now. He goes to these things where world leaders and luminaries, address people about the stuff we're supposed to think is true. And Sadhguru's got a lot of good stuff, but he pushes the damn globe, and I know he can't believe that. It's kind of funny. So I stopped listening to Sadhguru, but I've been through most of his things. I kind of get where he's coming from. One thing he said that I want to find, I downloaded the video, but now I can't find it because I erased it and I no longer have it. But he's talking about airplanes. He says he was touring an Indian temple, and the tour was moving along, and he was near the back of the group, and as they went along, there was a roped off little area to the side, and he stayed behind, and he slipped under the rope, and he said that there was engravings on the wall there, and he looked them over, and what he said was that on the wall in this Hindu temple was instructions on how to construct aircraft, like airplanes. I think he said planes, even an airplane, and instructions on how to either design or how to build this airplane, and a warning. And the warning was that if you build these things, then mankind will never know peace. Something to that effect. And I thought, well, that's strange, the Hindu temple, so it's old, ancient, and they were describing how to build an airplane and saying that if you do this, though, you'll never know peace. And that's kind of what's happened, because what's the airplane been used for? I mean, sure, you can get on an airplane and travel in it, but basically the airplane is used for war. The airplane is used to stifle the need for the airship. And the airship is so efficient and cheap that anybody could go anywhere. I suspect that in the old world they had airships that just covered the whole planet. Covered the whole world. And it's like a bus. You could go out and get on the Airbus, and you could take it to wherever you wanted to go. Make your connection in New York, and then take one over the Atlantic, and then check the next one at London, and head for St. Petersburg or wherever, anywhere you wanted to go in the whole world. It could be wide open with airships. They don't need fuel to stay in the air. Short of some catastrophic failure of some sort that couldn't be, from inferior components or improperly built. I mean, an airship can't just fall out of the sky. They don't do that. And the Hindenburg, of course, that was some bullshit. That was a psyop to scare everybody away and say that's why we don't have airships anymore, because of that. They're dangerous. Well, they didn't even use hydrogen in airships as a general rule. They just did that time, so that they could set it on fire, and really the fire was burning the paint on the outside. It was a setup. It was to take the airships away. Because what would the government do if there were 50 companies engaged in selling airship travel to wherever, to the general public? There would be airships all over the place. There would be people able to observe the land below slowly. Where would they have a top secret base at if an airship could come floating by at any time and people could see it and see what's going on there, or see buildings that ought not to be there? I mean, it's obvious airships were massively widely used, and I think that was the case. They've been removed because they don't want people to be able to easily and cheaply move. Like, today would be great if we had airship service to all over the world. It would be cheap and easy to just gather up the family. Well, kids, this place is getting too crappy. Oh, the pandemic is on the way. We don't want to get trapped here with all these sick people or whatever. You go down to the airship place, you book your ticket, and next thing you know, you're in Australia, or you're, in the South Pacific, or you're in Alaska. You could go anywhere cheaply, safely. It just takes longer to get there. Who cares? I'd much rather ride an airship for 2 days to get across the country than spend, 7 hours on an airplane. And airships can't run out of fuel and crash. Not that airplanes have a bad safety record. They have an amazing safety record, considering that they're a machine made by people, but still, I bet there's more airplane crashes than there have been airship crashes. Hindenburg don't count. Yeah, anyway. Gurus. Sad guru. Let's see, before him, I was listening to Alan Watts, and I really like Alan Watts. Alan Watts, I learned so much from his talks. I think I'm going to turn here and stop at St. Cloud for a minute. Me and Kelsey used to stop here when we'd go up to when you come into town, and go back up to his house in Carson back in the day. This was our spot to stop and roll some joints. That's what I think I'm going to do, roll me up a joint. Yeah, Alan Watts, he's great. But I listen to pretty much everything by Alan Watts, and not everything. He did a lot of talks, but I've listened to at least 50 different ones of his, and of full-length talks, and then some of his shorter ones too. And he was quite the character. But he believed in the spinning ball space story too. So when he talked technical, he would refer to things being space and planets. And once I discovered that, we've all been psyoped and Jedi mind tricked with the globe, I get a little irritated having to see this fake CGI globe put into everything, and have that story referred to as if it were some kind of scientific fact, when I know it's not. But so many people believe it is, that it just goes unquestioned that these are facts, when it's not. If you have self-confidence in your ability to understand physics, you can come to the conclusion and discover. I mean, you can figure it out without doing any tests if you really know physics. Centrifugal force only goes out from axis and gravity pulls toward the center of the ball. Well, then what happens at the North Pole where you're at the axis turning, supposedly, and gravity's pulling you down, but centrifugal force is pulling you sideways? You can't resolve those two. That's a conflict right there. If gravity pulls you towards the ground and centrifugal force goes sideways from axis, then if you're on a spinning planet, there's going to be a force felt at a 90-degree angle relative to gravity pulling outward at all times. And it only grows stronger the farther you go from the axis. So it would be impossible for water, even with gravity, even if it were a real thing pulling down, it would be impossible for water to stay at the poles. It would all migrate to the equator. That'd be the only place the two forces were in opposition. And still, there's the fact that as you go over the surface, you would increase radius from the center of axis, in which case centrifugal force would grow ever stronger. And at the equator, where they could be opposed to each other, the centrifugal force would be far stronger than the weak force gravity, and all water would fly off the ball into space and create a disk, perhaps. And at some point outside the disk, where the energy from centrifugal force was wore down from entropy or whatever, well, you'd be so far from the gravitational source that wouldn't have any effect, and it would just fling off into space. If there was such a thing as space in a vacuum. I recently was thinking about it after, learning about a lot of these flat earth topics. And I was thinking, okay, Big Bang, if there was a Big Bang, that's an explosion. Is there an explosion that happens that doesn't expand as a result of the pressure internal from the explosion? And if it's an internal pressure that expands an explosion, then the Big Bang should contain pressure pushing the event horizon out, creating the universe. How is there a vacuum inside it? If it's expanding, it's under pressure. If there's a vacuum inside it, then it can no longer expand. The vacuum is in opposition to expansion. It would contract. If the universe had a vacuum and there was space, then it would be contracting. Oh, my battery's getting low. I just noticed it flashed at me. So anyway, I better end this up there. There's such simple common sense nuts and bolts types of things that debunk the globe. They baffle everyone with bullshit. Steve Mould recently made a video purporting to show gravity in action with some cast iron balls and some copper balls, kind of a copy of the Cavendish experiment. It doesn't show anything of the sort. And I made a comment on it and, got some flack from these people. But it was not a rude comment or anything. And it was very matter-of-factly. And, I've never heard a globe believer address the centrifugal force thing. I've heard a couple in comments people they've replied saying, oh, well, the gravitational constant, blah, 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 negates the centrifugal force. And I'm like, how does it negate a force that is exerted at a 90-degree angle relative to itself? It doesn't oppose it. It can't oppose it. There's no way that pulling down will keep something from going sideways. It would be like having a tug-of-war contest with somebody, and they got their feet up against a wall pulling straight away, and you have to stand straight up sideways and hold them. They're going to win. They're going to pull you sideways, you'll fall over. There's no way that could work. And yet, all the colleges and professors and authorities of the world push the globe. Oh, this is true. This is true. We're on a ball. There's limited resources. There's scarcity. And it justifies all this shit they're doing to control people. It makes it, if you believe in that, then, oh yeah, we are destroying the world with our pollution. No, they're spraying stuff from airplanes that's destroying the environment and telling you that it's you. And they're withholding resources and telling you there's scarcity. There isn't. There's abundance everywhere. It's just that we have a group of people that have got in charge and in control of all these large resources, and they're keeping them limited so that we all have to scramble and fight, and that makes us controllable. Welcome to the Earth. What a shit show. Anyway, if you got it this far, thanks for listening. hope you sparked your imagination and you can investigate some of these things I talk about. Don't just think I'm telling you something, because I could be wrong about some of this, but I would need to be shown real factual reasons how that centrifugal force thing doesn't work before I believe it. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario in which that would happen, but you know, how it got to this point, oh man, who knows? But all right. Thanks for listening. Bye.